Jonathan, thank you so much for being here today. Honored to have you. For everyone watching, my name's Alex Rin. I lead the content marketing strategy for the LinkedIn ads business. And I'm here today with Jonathan Vu, VP of Marketing, Media, and Sponsorships at ServiceNow. I'd love, Jonathan, to pass it to you for you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do at ServiceNow, and as is tradition here, share something that's not on your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, okay, great. Yes. So as mentioned, I'm Jonathan Wu. I head global brand media and sponsorships at ServiceNow. My job here as part of the brand marketing team is to make sure that everyone recognizes ServiceNow's brand, as many people as possible within our customer set and beyond, as one of the leading enterprise technology companies out there. ServiceNow is a 20 plus year old company. We've been helping companies transform their business through their workflows for a long time now. And we're now the AI platform that's helping more than 85% of the Fortune 500s out there do that across every single workflow, every single department in their company. So we have a great product out there. And I have the pleasure within the brand organization to help make sure that as many people know that as possible. Some things that people don't, what do you want to know on my LinkedIn profile? Let's see. Um, I've got a daughter who's 6, a son who's 4. I live in Berkeley. I have a dog. Kind of a perfect life out here.
That sounds amazing. We'll have to talk about the dog stuff later. I just moved back to the Bay and I'm trying to find all the good dog parks. Thank you for sharing that about your life and about ServiceNow. We're here today to share a success story that Jonathan and his team saw by leveraging LinkedIn CTV ads and brand link. ServiceNow is no stranger to innovation. As Jonathan mentioned, they're known for transforming IT workflows. The company has spent the last several years evolving into a broader AI-powered enterprise platform designed to support every function of modern business. But with this growth came naturally a challenge: how to reintroduce the brand to a wider audience of C-suite leaders and beyond IT, and to do so in a way that both captured attention and delivered measurable results. So, Jonathan, would love it if you could share a bit more about the presented challenge and your approach there.
Yeah. I think our challenge right now, and that one that LinkedIn has been helping us out with, is kind of a marketer's dream. We have fantastic product market fit. We have a fantastic reputation from all the customers who use us. So if you know of ServiceNow, you love us. And so in marketing, our job is to just expand that aperture, like I just said earlier. And so the challenge that we have is that it's a highly competitive marketplace. We're evolving from what people knew about, as mentioned earlier, in IT workflows, to having much more relevance in transforming business across the rest of the company. So our job now is to expand from that great relationship we have with the IT leadership in companies to getting the rest of the company to recognize us. And these are enterprise companies that are all around the world, employees of 1,000 plus. And our job is to build that awareness with them and to drive perception with them as a leading brand. That's really hard right now because we're now elevating to a place where we're not just talking about we're competing with single point solutions or we're going after a particular widget that our customer is trying to solve, but really presenting ourselves as a platform company. And we're trying to catch up now because there are a lot of great platform companies who have been doing it for decades. They have long install bases, have been building equity in their brands for a long time. And we're trying to accelerate that as quickly as possible, especially in this backdrop of everyone trying to win a platform war.
Yeah, it's never been more competitive, but it's also never been more exciting, especially with companies as innovative as ServiceNow. So, can you tell us a little bit about who your audience is, your buyers, your prospects, and maybe why LinkedIn was the selected environment to reach them?
Yeah, our target audiences, as expected now, are business decision makers of enterprise companies, 1,000 people plus. And that is a puzzle because we're not just looking at the IT decision maker anymore. It's the entire group. We've recognized now that a technology strategy is inherent to any business unit's strategy success. So we're trying to build awareness in that capacity. Why is LinkedIn really important for that as a platform is that ability to have our targeted account lists in the platform, be able to target people on a persona, job description level, recognize their industries, recognize their companies. All of that is available within the LinkedIn platform. Yes, there are other databases and platforms out there that allow us to target based off of job description and everything like that. But LinkedIn is differentiated in how well maintained that database is. There's this competitive advantage that LinkedIn has of people update their LinkedIn accounts regularly. So that hygiene is really there. So if we're targeting a person of this title at this company, this industry, and that company or country, we know we're really hitting them. So first and foremost, from an audience platform, LinkedIn is super powerful for us and is integral to our media mix, whether we're looking at brand or demand.
What about CTV enticed you? How did
Yeah.
you go about your CTV strategy, and how did LinkedIn fit into that?
Yeah, LinkedIn's part of our overarching omni-channel media mix. Before we talk about CTV, we talk about the strategy as a whole. Everyone knows the adage that B2B customers are not just business people, they're consumers as well. So it's really important for us to connect with our audiences when they're in the business mindset. LinkedIn's great for that. They're connecting with their communities. They're seeing what opportunities are out there. They're following thought leaders on the place. Um, all of that's awesome. Um, uh, but we've been using CTV to connect with our audiences when they're in a more lean back environment. Why is that? Your relationship with media is different when you're in different mindsets. When you're in the business mode, LinkedIn, your blinders are up. You're looking for specific information. But I think a lot more business marketers now are recognizing that when you connect with a consumer at a consumer level, when they're leaning back, they might be a little bit more open and receptive to different types of messages that they weren't expecting before. They're not hyper focused on, I'm on the platform for a specific job to do. So if they're on their mobile device traveling and they're at the airport killing time, or if they're on their sofa late at night, or they're watching a game or something like that, CTV has played an integral role to drive a lot of reach and high attention moment around the things that people genuinely love. And so how does LinkedIn's CTV proposition play a role in that is that we're able to take the power of LinkedIn's audience platform and just scale that to other devices, other screens, and other headspaces. And we have that level of precision of target audiences with the power of a consumer environment context. And that scales in so many other ways where other forms of buying CTV, we need to correlate the impact of those campaigns or find other means to connect the dots between, say, a brand campaign and a demand gen campaign. We're able to do that all within one play through CTV and LinkedIn because LinkedIn is that backbone between both our brand and demand gen campaigns.
When you think about your ads on LinkedIn versus like on CTV, because it's a different mindset of someone being on the platform or being on the couch, how do you like adjust your creative or your messaging to meet the mind of the marketer?
Yeah, fortunately, in our brand campaign right now, that's been a big part of our strategy. Our messaging can traverse the business context as well as the consumer context because our spots are funny. I really encourage anyone to take a look at it. Our brand ambassador is Idris Elba. He anchors it, and there's a whole bit. He's surrounded by a cast of characters who are going through real world scenarios that bring humor into it, and it kind of feels like a mini sitcom that's happening. So the business solution scenarios in the spots resonate in a business context because they're real things that everyone can relate to. But because it's featuring a great celebrity and has humor and has tone, it works really well in a consumer environment too. It doesn't break the context or it doesn't force you into a business mindset, and you can laugh at it in that environment too.
Absolutely. It's the perfect example of B2B doesn't have to be boring. In fact, it can't afford to be boring. What challenge did the integration with LinkedIn ads and MBCU solve for you?
Um, I think it solves several issues that I think any marketer has, not just B2B marketers. First and foremost, this existential crisis that we always have, especially as brand marketers, of how do you prove out that a brand campaign drives lead generation? We are able to solve that with this singular campaign because it is the same exact audience that is carried through that entire journey that we can market against. So our case studies are showing that we're seeing awareness lift and lead generation lift. Second, it allows us to walk the talk. Everyone talks about B2B doesn't have to be boring and B2C customers are consumers. And so we should market like consumers do. And when it comes to television, the natural thing to think about is absolutely, let's go into sports. Sports has been the safest, least wasteful, and strategically sound way to connect with audiences in a lifestyle environment because we have data that shows high attention and there are moments you can plan for. Where things get challenging in the TV environment is around sitcoms, dramas, the regular television programming that people watch that is not related to sports, that's not appointment-based television, and in all cases. And so when there's so many different shows that you can choose, it becomes a conundrum because we don't know everything that our consumers watching. By being able to addressably target our audiences in the context of drama and comedy through CTV, with LinkedIn's audiences being the assurance that we're not having any wastage, it kind of takes out that question mark and we can just dive right in. So we know what type of content we're adjacent to. We know our audience is there and there's no waste happening. That allows us to punch above our weight, as I mentioned earlier, with the competition we have.
What are you seeing in terms of like the next step that marketers or customers are taking? Because I think there's a concern that like, okay, well, if you serve them an ad on a platform, it's a clear CTA to click onto something. But if they're watching a sports program, for example, and they see your ad, like it's it might be a little bit longer. Like, how do you connect the dots with the multi-touch attribution?
Perfect. That's interesting, right? So multi-touch attribution is around modeling. What I like about this CTV offering is that you don't have to model it out. There's not as much guesswork because it's now a question of how are we remarketing to the same individual and carrying them through. So you're right that you can't click on a TV spot when it's on screen, but we can follow up our exposure for that same audiences wherever else we are in within LinkedIn. And we can follow up a CTV ad with a brand link ad or a sponsored ad or a thought leadership ad, all of the different mixes of tools that we have within LinkedIn's portfolio, depending on what the next job is to be done. Because sometimes it's not just going straight to clicking to .com. Sometimes we need to serve them other content that brings them down the funnel. So it's less about having to wait for multi-touch attribution, but following that initial data signal that we have from the first exposure all the way down. And I think that's the other thing that we like about this that it solves is a lot of us are trying to work on driving brand and demand. And this allows us to do that with a singular tactic that we're not guessing about cross exposure and trying to time it. We're literally remarketing against the same individuals all the way through.
You mentioned brand link. Can you tell me a bit more about your brand link campaign and what results you saw with CTV ads and LinkedIn brand link?
Yeah. So I think CTV and link and brand link ads solve different problems for us from a context and strategy standpoint. CTV is about connecting in different headspaces and in different mindsets or behaviors. What brand link helps us to do is address the fact that our audiences has a very low attention span. They're really about trying to find the information they need as much as possible. And how do you get content in front of them or advertising in front of them that is as thumb stopping as possible? One of the challenges with a sponsored ad is you're in the river of the news feed. Well, BrandLink allows us to run our ads adjacent to tier one publisher content. And so tier one publisher content allows us to put ourselves in front of more higher attention grabbing content. You know, I love our brand and the content we publish, but if you're not familiar with us and you see the ServiceNow logo in front of you, it might not be as thumb stopping as, say, a Fortune editorial piece that is related to a topic that you care about. And so we're able to work with publishers that we buy through other means, whether it's through direct relationships or other programmatic media, bring them into the brand link program, cherry pick the right type of content that we want to run our advertising against. And we have a higher probability of then getting the attention of our audiences and our message sticking longer. So that solves the issue of how do you stand out in a sea of sameness in a river. And we're seeing great results with BrandLink too.
As much as you can share, what's on the horizon for ServiceNow's upcoming LinkedIn campaigns, whether that be CTV or another format or feature from our suite?
Yeah, generally speaking, more because we've proven it works. From a brand link side of the table, we've seen last time we checked one of our results, 9% lift on aided awareness, but even cooler is seeing 30% lift in lead generation. On the CTV side of things, we're seeing 18 to 20% lift in aided awareness among our audience and 45% higher probability to fill out a lead gen form. So those are really fantastic numbers that we want to just continue. So simply put is doing more finding more opportunity. And as long as we see a good return on the performance of the campaign, we're just going to continue to do it because it helps us tackle multiple problems in the same time. And so as long as the inventory is of great quality and our audience is engaging with it, I don't see a reason why we're going to take it out of our baseline plan.
Do you have any advice for other marketers who are considering running CTV campaigns or just getting started?
What I would say is a prereq is really understand your audience strategy. Understanding your audience strategy and the relationships your audience has with the consumer journey, that then having a strong foundation there accelerates your ability to just lean into some of these solutions that LinkedIn has. If we didn't have a firm grasp of our audience strategy, we wouldn't be able to evaluate these solutions and say, that's perfect. It allows us to do X, Y, and Z, and we're not guessing. We know how to carry it through. What you don't want to do is launch CTV, but not have visibility into your demand gen campaigns and not have a strategy to follow it up. You're then just leaving half of the value on the table.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom, and I hope that everyone has a lot to take away and bring to their teams.
Got it. It was fun.